AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Our host brings you the leading minds in AI, sharing their story, their success, and their advice. Focusing on fast-tracking you to the top, AI in Action cuts through the hype to help you kickstart your data science career. To listen to the latest AI in Action podcast, head over to www.alldus.com/podcast or subscribe via iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Podcasts.
Welcome to the AI in Action podcast. I'm your host, Mark Kelly, Chief Customer Officer at Alldus International. In today's show, we're speaking with Oleg Stavitsky, CEO and co-founder at Endel. Oleg, very, very good to have you on the show.
Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to be here.
Oleg, tell me a little bit about your background before we jump into more about Endel.
My background is I'm an entrepreneur. This is not my first company, not even my second company. Before that, I've been running a digital product agency. And I was also working on a company called Bubble, Bubl, which was a series of digital art for kids apps. And the co-founding team of Bubble is the same team that's working on Endel, basically.
And tell us a little bit about Endel. For people that don't actually know about it, how did you come up with the idea? Tell us a little about the journey to now.
The way I like to describe Endel is I say, look, this is a technology that helps you focus, relax, and sleep. And that's it. Of course, the way we do that is a little bit more complicated. The way we do that is we procedurally generate a soundscape, sound environment on the spot, on the device, personalized to you based on a number of inputs. We take in things like the time of day, the weather, your heart rate, your movement. We plug all of this information into the algorithm, and we create this soundscape on the spot, on the fly, personalized to you. And that allows us, the real-time nature of the soundscape allows us to react on the spot to the changes in those inputs. Like your heart rate changes, we react to that. The weather changes, we react to that as well.
So music has a huge influence on your life. You listen to that catchy tune, it can get you upbeat. You're watching a movie and the sad music starts to play. Suddenly you start to feel more in tune with the character. Tell us a little bit about some of the case studies and insight that you generated from the research that enabled you to come out with some of the product you have today.
I mean, we have a number of scientific partners. Like the science behind Endel, we didn't invent that science. We just plug into that body of research. Out there, there's quite a lot of research on how sound influences your cognitive state. And we were, for example, we've recently partnered with a company that does brainwave, real-time brainwave analysis. And what they've done, they've had people listening to Endel and measuring their brain waves, and then they've had the same people, listening to nothing, to silence, and then they've had them listening to the most popular focus playlist on Spotify and Apple Music, and then we've been comparing the brainwave analysis of those people. And yeah, what happened is turns out Endel beats everything, and because it was very interesting. What we would see is if you look at somebody's brainwave activity graph, and let's say that person listens to like a Spotify or an Apple Music focus playlist, what would happen there is you would see these spikes, like certain tracks, certain songs work for that particular person, but then 3, 4, 5 minutes later, you would see these drops because another song would kick in, and that just doesn't work that well. Because naturally, that's just the nature of listening to a playlist. So this is when Endel comes in, and you could see people, we would bring them into the zone, and they would just stay there. So certain spikes, certain productivity or focus spikes are not as high, but then the best thing about this is that it just brings you there and you stay in the zone, you stay in the flow. So this is, watching those real-time brainwave scans, basically, we realized we're onto something here.
So tell us about some of the challenging projects that you do and how are you utilizing machine learning?
it's funny, like we don't really do a lot of machine learning at this point. Like what we're primarily dealing with, sound synthesis, real-time sound synthesis, and real-time melody generation. So the way Endel works right now is it deals with stems, individual sounds like that are like between 1 to 30 seconds long. And what the algorithm does is, depending on what the inputs tell it to do, it picks up the right stems from the library, like splices them together, overlays them with some post processing effects. And then on top of that, there is a number of AI systems that generate melodies. Like there's this approach called the Markov sequence, for example, where basically, we would generate a MIDI sequence, and then the MIDI sequence would get played by a variety of instruments, depending on, depending on what's happening in your life, basically. That's how we utilize AI at this point. We're now implementing ML, where we're just starting to implement ML to, go deeper and understand, if there's certain patterns in your Endel usage, and if we can attribute those patterns to, for example, your chronotype. When you wake up, how much sleep did you get today? Did that affect the way you've been using Endel today? Things like that.
Because everyone's on such a personal journey. So if you can start to have something that takes into consideration where you're at that point, as an end user, you're going to really have a lot more value generated from it.
Definitely, yes. Like that's, when we've been doing research for Endel, we've spoken to a Russian physicist who wrote a book called The Physics and Anatomy of Music. And we were like, hey, can you help us, with the science, like which frequencies, scales, and tones should we be using in order to help people focus, relax, and sleep? And the first thing he said was like, it has to be personalized. It has to be adaptive. It cannot be just one song or one playlist for everyone. It really depends on when, what is the time of the day, what is the time of the year, how old you are, like what is your sex, all of those things matter.
Tell me a little bit about some of the projects that you're working on in the future, and tell us about some of the impact you want to have with the work that you're doing.
Well, I mean, we've recently partnered with one of our favorite musicians, Grimes, on this AI lullaby sleep soundscape that premiered last the end of October, beginning of November. Like we've had that sleep soundscape that we've developed in collaboration with her, the artist Grimes. And the way that worked is, she created, she didn't record a song, but she created individual stems, sounds. She recorded them in the studio and sent them to us. And we processed those sounds through our algorithm. And that resulted in this real-time sleep soundscape that was called AI Lullaby. So we're looking to do more of that this year, for example. You'll see us doing more artist collaborations. You'll see us basically going more deeply into culture, so to speak. Like having this culturally relevant collaborations is very important to us. On the other hand, for example, we're working on integrating our technology into our product, sorry, not on technology, our product into cars, headphones, smart speakers, things like that. So you'll see a lot of Endel powered devices around you, hopefully by the end of this year.
Has COVID brought some challenges that you've had to overcome and probably look at the way you work differently over the last year or so?
I wouldn't say that, because I mean, first of all, we were always a remote first team, even before COVID. So thankfully, we didn't have to sort of readjust and change our processes. We just continued working, there was business as usual for us. Actually, naturally, COVID accelerated our growth, and we've seen a lot of people flooding into the app starting about like March. And an interesting thing happened, before the pandemic. Sleep was the most used mode. So it was the most popular mode in Endel. But then that changed to focus as people started working from home, and focus now is the most popular mode in the app.
It's interesting, but how that evolved from sleep to now focus, because these things are really important, and your sleep really affects your focus in the day, right? Particularly if you've got young kids and you need to try to manage through that as well, and the lines of working and living at home can start to get blurred as well. So it's particularly interesting way to leave it to two. Do you see the future within the industry changing over the next coming years, or what do you think the future holds?
I can tell you what we're building in order to realize that future, so to speak. I think we will see, like we're surrounded with this so-called smart devices. They're not really smart devices, they're just connected devices that understand so much about us and know so much about us, right? So what I think will happen, and what we are working on, is when what's missing basically is an infrastructure software layer, is this technology that reads all of that data, understands the context of your day, and proactively has those devices talking to each other and react to whatever is happening in your life. So like the end game for us is, you coming back home and our algorithm goes like, oh, you just had 10 meetings, you've been stuck in traffic, like your heart rate is this, and it like proactively dims the lights, changes the temperature, creates a soundscape, creates a visualization. So you don't have to do anything. It's just the surrounding devices understand the context of your day and react to that. That's what we are working on.
So the context, understanding that context is really, really important. I'm Mark Kelly, Chief Customer Officer at Alldus, and you've been listening to the AI in Action podcast. Our guest today has been Oleg Stavitsky, CEO and co-founder at Endel. Oleg, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
AI in Action is brought to you by Alldus International, covering your business's staffing, consulting, and networking needs. Alldus offer an exec search program. Alldus can help you discover how data science and AI can transform your company. With our unrivaled network of C-suite executives and senior AI professionals, we offer retained search services across the US and Europe. Get the Alldus advantage. Become a member of the Alldus community and enjoy some of the following: AI meetups. Once a month, our community gathers to listen to some of the leading experts in the world of data science and AI. Our speakers come from all over the world, including Dublin, Boston, and Frankfurt. We also have our AI mentors. Our experts will provide mentoring to Alldus members. And don't forget our AI in Action podcast. Each week we have guests from all over the world talking us through their education, career, and more. Become an Alldus member and get the Alldus advantage. For more information and to sign up for our newsletter, log on to www.alldus.com. That's www.alldus.com. Alldus International, empowering through AI.